Hi, everybody. I think we have just maybe one or two more. When my check-in ladies come in, we'll officially start. But thank you for your quick turnaround, our quick turnaround. Our timekeeper will shift the start time of the meeting based on, what are we at? 12? We'll be about 12:20 when that's come in. So just be patient for those last little bit and we'll get going. Hello? Whoa. It's really hard to predict how many people are going to show up and order food. So if you didn't get some food, we're sorry. We did our best. Yeah, it is a great problem to have. It's good to see so many faces. Okay, I see the ladies coming. These are final people. Am I on? Krista, you predicted 130 people? 129. All right, let's get this show going. Woo. Let's see. Good afternoon, Eliot Chapel. Please bear with me as I read the script. It's a lot, and I'm not going to memorize it. I will try to be with energy. Put the mic to my mouth. All right. And if I talk too fast, slow me down. I'm a fast talker. I rely on you. So good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for attending our 2025 annual congregational meeting. I am Carol Glauser, Chair of the Board of Trustees. I hereby officially call this annual meeting to order. It's nice to see all of you who have joined us this afternoon, and that includes the Zoom attendees. There's 7 of them in there. Do we have Sue in there? Yeah. Our treasurer's here, and our treasurer-to-be is in person. They're going to, tag team. This past year's been a bit of a roller coaster. We've had lots of energy and excitement as we began the first year with Reverend Krista Taves as our official settled lead minister. We got to celebrate with her as a community at her installation in October, where we had a bit of a mutual community a mutual admiration and appreciation thing going on between her and us, and the singing, and it was just a very nice event. And then there was November. You know what happened in November, don't we? So never has it meant more to me to have a loving community to trust and rely on, to mend my soul in the face of so much darkness right now. Thank you, everyone, for shining your light in our pledge campaign and just in general, for collectively radiating our light together as a beacon of courage and love to scorch out the fear and anguish that's in this world. Before we proceed, I'd like to recognize some people who have been dedicated to making today possible. Get our thank yous out of the way. First and foremost, our staff members, Debbie Lovell, Brian Franklin, Scott Stewart, and of course, the fearless leader, Reverend Krista Taves. And I want to add our wonderful Sunday sexton, Ed, who... Oh, and Reverend T. Evans. I should know that. I'm on her pastoral care team. Thank you. Let's see. I lost my place. And we left somebody out that's really big, and that's the man in the back. Thank you, Ken Dennison, for all the time you give as a volunteer. You're behind the scenes making the magic happen. Even with the glitches, man, you are dedicated, so we love that. I want to recognize the members of the 24-25 Board of Trustees. We have, by the way, 3 people or 2 that are out and not here today, and then we have Sue through Zoom. So we had some helpers from the non-com that came in. But the Board of Trustees, Sue Bell, who's on Zoom, Rebecca Taylor. Put your hand up. Stand up. Be recognized. Let people know who's their board. Bob Becker, who's not here. David Cox. Kathy Brunt, who's also one of our missing, or she's out having fun. And then Matthew Hull. Jennifer Stauber. And me. And Reverend Krista is part of the board too, what do you call it, ex facto? All right. Everybody has been so dedicated this past year in experimenting and implementing a lot of changes in how the board and lead minister do collaborative dance in service to our mission and congregation. As timing would have it, I already said 3 of our board members are out of town. Okay, so another warm thank you to Tony Saunders, Sarah Fleming, Claire Weineken, and Kayla Conchi for also stepping in to help. We truly have a lot of good people here. All righty, let's pull up the agenda. And I have just a few housekeeping items. For those that are attending on Zoom, later in the meeting we'll have the floor open for questions, and you can post your remarks in the chat, and Matthew and Kaylin will relay them for you. Who's taking minutes now? Is it you?
Kaylin and I are both taking
We have 2 people taking minutes today. Rebecca Taylor, who is our secretary, and Kaylin, who is our past secretary. And then we have David Cox doing double duty as our parliamentarian and our timekeeper. And he'll also be the guy on the floor with the mic when we have our floor time. If there's any young parents here, I'm really sorry that we went late, but we'll have to keep an eye on the clock.
Are we okay with pulling the curtains?
Sure.
It makes that come through better. And I'm going to switch your mic because that's cutting in and out.
I could hear that.
In the bow of the day. And Jared. Give me 1 second to switch.
Mine? Thank you. Let's see. I also need to appreciate, do we have parents here that have their kids in the nursery? Anyone? Oh, we don't have to worry about that. I was worried that, our nursery people have to leave and the meeting's going to go long, but pass on that. I will need your help today in time management because we're trying to take a normal annual meeting agenda, which is 90 minutes, and then add this voting that we're doing in it. So when we get to the voting thing, remember how we did the flowers, be really efficient. All right. I'll tell you the details when we're ready for the vote. I'm going to turn the floor over right now to Jennifer Stauber, Chair-elect, to read our congregational covenant.
Testing. We, the congregation of Eliot Unitarian Chapel, learning from our past and forging a new path together, make this covenant. We will be open and honest in our governance and in our interactions with one another. We will recognize and celebrate our differences and not be surprised when we disagree. We will regard our diversity as an opportunity to learn from one another and let our differences inspire discourse rather than division. We will be kinder to one another than we have to be. We will remember that this covenant, like our community, is a work in progress. We will live these principles by promising to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to be sure we understand the other person's point of view before responding with our own, to talk over differences in opinion with each other directly, openly, and respectfully, to speak clearly of our own experiences and to propose our own solutions, to seek out personally and actively complete information about issues of importance to us, to share our opinions responsibly and respectfully, choosing an appropriate time, place, and person, to recognize and honor in each other the good intentions and motivations that lead us to speak up in our church, to follow existing processes for conflict resolution at Eliot Chapel, to focus our communication on finding ways to improve our church for all members and friends, to follow these promises in all forms of communication, one-on-one, in groups, and electronically, to greet newcomers warmly and welcome them to our church with interest and empathy, and to remind ourselves and each other of these promises regularly and gently.
Thank you, Jennifer. At this time, I'm going to ask Board Secretary Rebecca Taylor to report attendance numbers so that we may confirm that we have quorum.
At present, the official membership records of Eliot Chapel contain 419 people. In Article 4, Paragraph E of our bylaws, a quorum at the annual meeting shall be 10% of the membership. The required attendance to meet quorum is 42. I think we did it, okay. I don't know how many voters there are, but there are more than 42. And on Zoom, the total, therefore, which is a sufficient number of members present to establish a quorum, and the business of the annual meeting may proceed.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to turn your attention to the adoption of the proposed meeting rules that are contained in the meeting materials, and I think they're on screen right now. These are a set of meeting rules we have historically used for Eliot Chapel's annual meeting. Are there any questions regarding these rules? Oh, well, that would help. Can we have the next slide? Oh. Yeah, no. There we go. That's all right. Are there any questions regarding these rules? I'll give you time to read them. Hearing no objections, the chair will consider the rules approved by unanimous consent. Thank you. At this time, we're going to consider the adoption of the consent agenda. I want to give a brief explanation of a consent agenda for those that may not. Did I go past something? Oh. You looked at me and I thought, oh no, hang on. Oh, so many things here. Okay, we use the consent agenda to group simple or straightforward items into one agenda item. This speeds up the meeting and allows time for other issues and dialogue. It is approved in one action by one vote, and it enables us to handle these items efficiently. Because information has been distributed in advance and there is no discussion or debate on the items. Any member may request that an item shown on the consent agenda could be removed and considered an ordinary course of business. Today, the proposed consent agenda consists of 6 items. The information covering all of these items was included in the meeting packet, distributed in advance of today's meeting. The items are approval of today's agenda, approval of the 2024 annual meeting minutes, the election of Steve Jarrett to the Board of Trustees for a 3-year term, the election of David Cox for a 1-year term extension on the Board of Trustees, and the election of Ann Lemon as the treasurer of the Board of Trustees for a 3-year term. There's also the election of Sue Bell to the Nominating Committee for a 3-year term. Please note that the bios that are in your packet, you will see 2 nominees for the Nominating Committee that are not included in the consent agenda and do not require a vote from the congregation. Aaron Pohl will be filling a Nominating Committee appointed vacancy for a 1-year term, and I will fulfill a spot as the Board of Trustees appointed member for a 2-year term. But you're not voting on that. I will ask now, are there any members who request that any of these items be taken off the consent agenda? All right. Having heard no objections, the chair will consider the consent agenda to be adopted by unanimous consent. Therefore, the nominees listed on the Board of Trustees and the Nominating Committee have been elected to their respective positions. Thank you to those members for their willingness to contribute their time, talent at Eliot Chapel. Congratulations, Steve. Or Steve. There we go. Yay. Ann Lemon, she gets her own plug. David for staying on, so wonderful. And we can applaud Sue on Zoom, yay. I note for the purpose of the minutes that there is no old business to come before the congregation at this annual meeting. So we are going to move on to new business. So we rearranged the format a little bit so that we could get the vote. Let me see. Okay. We wanted to move it up first so that everybody could get the votes and it could be counted and we can announce it all in the same meeting, more efficient. But I will allow, although we've had time for discussions and opportunities, if somebody still has a question or a comment they want to make, we'll allow for a few minutes. Otherwise, we'll go into the vote. Are there any comments from the floor or questions? Yes, Carl Stribble.
From one or both or what? I've got comments from a proxy vote for both, and I have a comment of my own on one of these.
Okay. Oh, it's
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Tim Gardner is performing in a concert, and he asked me to read a statement on each of these 2 items. So as soon as I figure out how to use this cell phone, here we go. All right. On the name change motion. I'm sorry? Okay. On the name change motion, thank you. This is Tim Gardner's statement. I rise in gentle opposition to my dear friend Stephen Bain, who at this time, smile, is wrong. We are spiritual seekers who actively explore both universalism and Unitarianism in addition to other isms, and we still remain an independent congregation, though in complicity with and as a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association. But we are not its servant. Eliot Unitarian Chapel is a historic congregation in a historic building with a legacy that reaches back to our namesake. At a time when others rewrite American history and distort this vision, we should do neither. I beseech you, hold on to our history as we embrace our vision and remain Eliot Unitarian Chapel. That's the end of Tim's statement on that item. On the item of conferring emeritus status to Reverend Gaydon, Tim writes, "This is a difficult position for me to take, but I rise in opposition. What has not been stated in the published material is that the request for emeritus status was first brought to us in order for Reverend Barber to gain an increased pension from the UUA. Shame on them for making this our problem. This is a UUA equity problem, not a rationale for weakening the standards for an emeritus minister of Eliot Chapel. Barbara gave strong leadership to this congregation in several areas during her 7 years, especially social justice. But she failed us in her stewardship of money, in budget oversight and fundraising, and in her understanding of policy governance. These are major shortcomings for someone who wanted to be our CEO. She became more distant from many congregants, including those who volunteered, as well as those with needs. These are not attributes of one to have emeritus status. This is the end of Tim's statement on that question. I have my statement on the question of emeritus status. And I just want to correct what I think is a misunderstanding about the average tenure of UUA ministers. On the website, it was stated that the average tenure today is around 4 years. That strikes me as being a very low estimate. From personal experience at a congregation very much like this one in Westport, Connecticut, and in a paper that was written by, I'm getting his name wrong, Colin Perrell, who's the lead minister of First Unitarian in Dallas. Reverend Perrell wrote this paper that I found in 2018, which would have been at the time of Reverend Barber's tenure. And he said that the average age at that average tenure at that age in the UUA was 7 years, which he doubted. And so he did some research, and what he did was he went back to the UUA records and found that it varied, the average tenure varied by the size of the congregation. Now, the congregation that Reverend Perrell serves today is around 360 people, congregants in 2018, which is about the same as the church in Westport at that time and about the same as Eliot Chapel at that time. He found that he found 10 sample congregations who had recent ministerial changes, and that the average tenure was 11 years, not 4, and that the mean of the tenure was about 11 years. That's consistent with the experience of the Unitarian Church in Westport that Yvonne and I know well. We were there for the last 15 years of a minister of 29 years of tenure. The minister that followed him had about a 9-year tenure before he left last year. So he actually started just when Reverend Gaydon started here and left about 2 years ago. I just wanted to make sure that that information was available to everybody, which I think is accurate. I do have a copy of the paper here if anybody would like to see it.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes. I had knee replacements this last year while I was the chair, so going up and down stairs, I gotta have my little minions help me. I'm actually doing really good with my knees.
Thank you. I'm Dottie Storer. I respectfully disagree with Tim on both issues. In terms of being a Unitarian, adding the Universalist to our name, I think that is part of our history. The Unitarians and the Universalists joined, I think it was 1961, is that correct, Barb? Yes. Krista? When I came here 25 years ago, I was surprised that it was not in the name at that time. Our church was founded before the joining, so it's very understanding that it came from one or the other of those traditions. But we are Unitarian Universalists. We call ourselves that. and I think that should be part of our name. As far as the honorary recognition of Barbara as Minister Emeritus, I think she excelled in getting our social action, which we already had, but it became a lot more effective under her leadership. I think she gave wonderful sermons. I was surprised, how often I thought that was a terrific sermon. And I've been members of, I think, 7 different churches, so had some comparisons. No minister is perfect. She had her strengths and she had her weaknesses. Thank you.
We've been a little lenient with the time. Remember that you have 2 minutes. Is there any other comments? Okay. We need to wrap this up pretty quick. We had time for these previously.
Sure, if I yeah, microphone's on. It's Steve Harvey. Hi, everybody. Just wanted to speak briefly in support of Reverend Barbara Gaydon getting the honorary title of Emerita. She, I think one thing that's a misunderstanding from what Tim said about some change in her pension, I think that's just simply not true. There's no, it's my understanding that there is no financial change by being a minister emeritus. So there's no money involved. It is only an honorary title and nothing else at all. So that part is just simply not the case.
I can verify that.
You can verify that?
I
Okay,
have
yeah.
information from Reverend Christ on that, and I can verify that there are no benefits. It's false.
Yes, yeah. So that part's just false. Yeah. Okay.
It's confusion.
Yes, yeah, that's just confusion. And I guess the other thing I want to point out is that in the long history of Eliot Chapel, I do think Reverend Gaydon has the second longest tenure of all the ministers we've ever had. I believe that's the case. I believe she has the second longest tenure. I served as chair of the board in the middle of the pandemic. I was very impressed with her leadership, and I think things were rough at Eliot Chapel when things were rough for all chapels everywhere in every denomination. And she did an excellent job of pulling us through those rough times and also in setting us up for the future. And we're seeing things bounce back today, and that's largely a result of Barbara setting us up for that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Folks, we have time at the floor for this is too much time to spend. We're going to be here all day. We had time for discussion. I'm going to take 2 questions and then we're done. Sorry, I have to be hard-nosed.
Which 2 are you taking? Which 2?
Well, Gail, and then Chuck. Was there somebody back there?
Yeah, so we had another hand up over here. Our meeting rules say 10 minutes and then we vote to.
Yes. You have to keep this like under a minute. Quick.
I'm Gail Rock. My son's girlfriend was raised Universalist in Universalist churches, and her grandfather was Reverend Scott, who was the head of the Universalist Association when the merger occurred. And I think that it's really important, and it's important to me as a Jew. I didn't have to give up my Jewish part of me to be Unitarian Universalist. Why would we not add Universalist to our name? It is who we are. It is what made us what we are today. I did a lot of research on Universalism because I really liked it and was at a church that didn't have Unitarian in its name, and I didn't know what Universalist was, and when I found out, I loved it. And I loved my son's girlfriend, who is a Universalist and raised Universalist, and I do hope that we really look at both the Unitarian and the Universalist. It's part of who we are.
Brief.
Hi, I'm Chuck Shooter. God help you, you all know who I am. I'm sorry. Just a couple of points of fact. Barbara was our third longest. The first longest was John Robinson. The second longest was Webb Kitchell. Okay? And so she was the third longest. That's still a very long time. I was going to have another question about what's the difference between Unitarian and Universalist. And I thank Gail for helping me with that answer.
All right. I'm going to call it no more comments. Thank you for those that did, and thank you for those who came early to the listening sessions and all of that. I'm going to tell you the logistics. It's going to be similar to, yes?
I rise to a point of order. Our rules say we can limit debate to 10 minutes unless there's a vote of a congregation to extend it. Should we ask the congregation if they'd like to extend it?
We could.
That's in the rules.
Does somebody want to make a motion to extend this discussion?
So move.
All right, we'll extend it by 10 minutes. No? 5. I'm sorry, what? Somebody I'm not hearing you guys.
Now we need to vote on that motion.
Oh. All in favor of extending it, raise your hand. Those opposed? We're going to vote. Thank you. Sorry. All right. I'll get you the logistics. So we're going to go out just like we did with the flowers. The north rows are going to exit one by one. Our ushers are going to, like our bouncers, are going to make sure you're efficient. You're going to go out the door, and to the corner over there is our dry erase board, and the boxes are behind it. So it's like a private screen. There's an arrow to enter and exit, and you will put your ballots in the box. You have a blue one and a orange one, so they're fairly easy to tell apart, and they're written it's written what you're voting on. The way the wording is if you are for these, you will vote yes. If you are against these, you'll vote no. The way it's worded is shall Eliot Unitarian Chapel confer the honorary title of Minister Emerita. Stop. Sorry. Minister Emerita to our recently retired lead minister, Reverend Barbara Gaydon, who retired from active ministry after serving our congregation for 9 years. And then the proposed name change. Shall Eliot Unitarian Chapel approve adding Universalist to its name, thus becoming Eliot Unitarian Universalist Chapel, to better reflect and include our universal heritage? A majority of the votes cast will be sufficient to approve each measure, and my bouncers are also my vote counters, so they'll be heading out really quick. Yes?
You want us to write on the front or the back of the paper?
You're not writing, you're putting them in a box.
Oh, thank you.
So, if you're for it, you put it in the yes box. And those proxies, you can put them all in one, all in one, split them up, however you want to do it. All right, ready to begin? Let's go.
Start this front row. We're going to go back on this side, back behind the dry erase, and come forward.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, by all means. I get it. Well, that's a good question. Am I? Oh, yeah, hi. All right, that was great. That was efficient. I just got to say, talking to my parliamentarian, you may have noticed that I'm not like super versed in the formalities of the Roberts Rules, so thanks for talking me through that. Happens in the board meetings all the time. All right, where are we here? Oh, it's my time. Is it? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry to have to read it too. It's just so much. Hold on. Okay. I was trying to make it bigger and I closed it. All right. My statement as outgoing chair. Serving on the Board of Trustees for the past 3 years and as a board chair this year, a year marked by the beginning of our journey with our newly settled minister, has been both exceptional and deeply encouraging in so many ways. After the uncertainty and disconnection of the pandemic years and the necessary but often complex work of the interim period, this past year has felt like turning a page. We've begun a new chapter together, grounded in love, guided by our shared values, and energized by the passion of a community that continues to show up with open hearts and fierce commitment. In a time when forces in our country and state are working to restrict freedoms and silence voices, Eliot remains a place with an allegiance to justice, equity, and the inherent worth of every single thread in the tapestry. So, if you've served on the board or perhaps a committee, you may understand when I say that some changes come blazing through at the speed of light and others arrive at the speed of stone. Still, quiet, almost imperceptibly patient, waiting for the right time to produce a lasting impact. There have been moments when I wondered if we were ever going to see progress. I grew weary with each month's agenda of the same things in process to report on again and again. But little by little, through sheer determination, like water carving through rock, we could see results manifesting, success is happening. It's a good lesson in being steadfast and faithful. So here's the verbal highlight reel. There's so much I could have put in here, but keep it down. The verbal highlight reel of the past year of the board's work. We started the year with a pretty dynamic shift in disposition as half the members of the board completed their terms and stepped off, and 4 new members came on. It takes time for a newly configured team to bond and harmonize, so our summer retreat gave us some time to begin that process. A couple of things that came out of our retreat time were the newly drafted board covenant that we use and read, and a board enrichment idea of giving time at each meeting for a member to pose a thoughtful question for everyone to reflect on and discuss. This was the beginning of the board opening up more to their role as visionaries driven by our mission. This next year, they will be spending more time on considering the big questions. Who are we? How are we living our mission? And less time on procedural busy work while still maintaining important guardrails and policies that establish and doing tasks like self-monitoring and transparency and trust. The long work of a 3-year rolling strategic plan that began at the end of my first year. We had UU training, and we formed a subcommittee, or at the training, I was told that the chair-elect is usually one that runs that committee, and I was like, oh. So Jennifer had the same reaction, but passed the baton. So we formed a subcommittee, and now it's implemented and being tested. It's got a jazzy name now. We call it Eliot's Rolling Roadmap. It's been in This Week at Eliot, and we've had other meetings on it. The committee was restructured for the new year under the guidance of our chair-elect, Jennifer Staver, and Reverend Krista and her staff and volunteers began turning goals into visions into reality. I am sure she'll say a little bit about that in her report. This is a new way for the Board of Trustees to do strategic planning, and it takes some experimentation and much collaboration to implement and monitor and communicate to the congregation. I encourage you all to attend the Rolling Roadmap presentation on Wednesday, May 28th, where the committee will share about the progress of the 24-25 strategic goals and gather suggestions for the future progression of strategic goals. They will be holding a hybrid meeting in person at 6 p.m. in Adams Hall, and it will also be available to attend by Zoom. I'd say the most impactful thing that came out of the board this past year was the final step, what I call the final step, of shifting into our governance style that follows the Hotchkiss model. You may have heard us talking about this Hotchkiss, or what we have called, which is much better than Hotchkiss, mission-based governance. You may have heard us talking about encouraging members to read Dan Hotchkiss's book called Governance and Ministry. It's an exciting title, right? There were parts that are, kind of, but there was some really good stuff. He has revolutionized how many churches do policy governance by moving them away from the more corporate model known as the Carver model to his collaborative model that works so much better for the unique environment of a nonprofit structured church organizations. And as we are working on mapping out a new way of doing our policy monitoring to make it less cumbersome and a more productive use of our time, we were kind of stuck in the logistics of just how to make that change. And that's when the brilliant Mr. David Cox, newly on the board, I say newly because he's been on the board in the past, he had us consider a fresh perspective. You know how that outside person comes in and kind of blows your mind? He said, if we have a new governance style or model, why are we trying to make policies that were written for the other model that we are moving away from fit in this different framework? In other words, he asked, why are we not considering writing new policies to match the mission-based governance? Well, that's a pretty good question. So we talked, and long story short, the board unanimously decided to undertake, with David's guidance, writing a new policy book based on a template in the Hotchkiss book. We now have completed a draft that we are satisfied with. Undoubtedly, it will take some fine-tuning this next year. We will be voting to officially adopt it and replace the one that is currently on the website that you can review, so the new one will be on there and we'll announce it. So look for other announcements about how we're going to communicate this and be listening for feedback. Shifting the way we govern will take time. I mean, it's happening, but it will take at least a couple, maybe even more years to fully embody and live that new model. But it's unfolding, and I think it's all been really positive, and I've heard a lot of positive things from the congregation. I want to offer my deep gratitude to each of you for all the ways that you have remained committed to our mission. Eliot flourishes because so many people say yes to showing up, to pitching in, to giving what they can. I'm in awe of the many ways people devote themselves here. Whether you have served our community through your presence, your actions, your resources, your love, know that it matters deeply, and it is why Eliot is the vibrant spiritual home that it is. Every shining heart-centered act we do, no matter how wee or mighty, weaves us more tightly together as a community that is a powerful force of transformation, grounded and radiant in love. It is so joyful to be a part of this place of belonging and acceptance. Thank you for trusting and accepting me. My time on the board has been one of the most meaningful experiences at Eliot. Is it time for Krista? Oh, and now we have our minister's statement.
Most of what you want to hear will be in my written minister's report, but I want to list a few highlights from this year. First, I really want to thank my staff team. We have a wonderful, wonderful staff team. Brian Franklin is our Director of Business Administration. There's a saying, a minister is only as good as their administrator. And that is absolutely true. Brian is my right-hand person. I look forward to coming to work every day because Brian is in the office. We talk every day. We work things through every single day. We know each other. We've come to understand how we think and what our priorities are, and we're a very, very strong team. So a lot of my success that looks like it's my success is also Brian's, and sometimes it's just Brian's, and it makes me look really good. And then to Debbie Lovell. Debbie Lovell has been with us for 8 years now. And so she is a form of continuity. Both she and Scott Stewart are forms of continuity. Scott's been here for 16 years. And that program can run with its eyes shut because he's got his eyes open. And Scott is an exceptional organizer, and he cares for our children as much today as he did when he first came here 16 years ago. And the program is growing. You know how the program almost evaporated during the pandemic? We have 85 kids registered this year. We started off with 85 kids, and families have been visiting, and that number has grown this year. So our RE program is once again thriving. We're not at the size we were before the pandemic, where it can be sustained through 2 programs, but it is really going well. And our youth group is back, as you also saw from the youth worship service that we did, because the youth group basically disappeared during the pandemic, and we now have a growing, strengthening youth group that is starting to understand that it has its own identity and culture. So I'm very, very proud of that, and I'm very proud of Scott's work with that. And Debbie, she's always there. She is just, any little thing I need done, Debbie is there. She makes it happen. And she also works with the front office volunteers. And I want to thank Mary Myhouse, who works in partnership with Debbie for the front office volunteers. And that we have someone in the office on Sundays, just like you've been asking for a long time. So that's really, really well done as well. You'll also notice we've had a lot of changes to worship this year. And our goal of the teams that I built and that are now very strong teams was to increase the accessibility of our services to a diversity of ages and experiences, because we weren't doing that as well as we should have. And so I know for some of you, some of the changes we've made have been a stretch, but I appreciate your generosity in accepting that stretch, because it means that the door has opened wider for others to come and find their place and make this congregation their own. Something you're going to learn is growth always means loss. It always means sacrifice and some grief for the promise that you have envisioned. And so I thank those of you who've been here a long time and have felt like you have lost a few things in the changes that have been made, because your generosity is the gift of to the next generation who will someday be in your place. So thank you so much for that. And then I also want to thank D. Evans, Reverend D. Evans, who's over in the side wings, for joining us. Now this is completely because of your generosity that we were able to restore a supporting minister to this congregation. They're still only quarter time. Would love to grow them to half-time, but we wanted to solidify this before we did we grew the position. We thought we were going to have to pay for this from savings. It was an investment that we were making. We didn't. Your generosity absorbed the full cost of bringing a supporting minister here. So this is your accomplishment. So I want to hold up that. And just a few more things. I mean, you just read the report, but I don't want to go through a laundry list. But the things that are sticking in for me is we have 2 new teams for music, for worship. We have the music team, which plans all the special music and also researches new hymns for us. Because you know we've been working with a greater variety and diversity of hymns. That's another one of those other things where we've been stretching. We have a team that researches these. And then we also have the other team that arranges for all those special musicians. And then we have the worship team, which has been working in partnership with me for all the developments that you've seen this year. They have been thoroughly discussed, and then we meet and we revise and we revise and we review, and we listen to you and the feedback we hear during coffee hour to be sure that we are in fact hearing you, responding to you, while we make these changes to grow our services and their accessibility to them. So I want to thank all of those teams, because you really did a lot of work, great work. I'm excited by the 222 Are Gone team. Thank you to everybody who came and offered your feedback on what you envision us doing with that property, but also with our whole property. We did a full facilities assessment. We didn't just start with, what do you want for 222? Because we needed somewhere to start from, which is, how is this working for us And where are the pressure points? Well, we're pretty clear about the pressure points. There were two main pressure points that came about. One was accessibility. Accessibility through parking and accessibility within the building. You know that no one can come and speak from this pulpit who doesn't have who needs a walker or a wheelchair. They are completely prohibited from ever stepping into our pulpit or on the chancel. That has to change. So we talked a lot about accessibility. And the other thing was outdoor space for children of all ages. So outdoor space, parking, and accessibility were the main themes. But the team's going to keep working on those. And so next year will be the year where some real plans start to be developed. There's so much more that I could say. But mostly I want to thank you for your generosity. Your generosity abounds in so many ways. Did you know that the average pledge of this congregation was $1,500 in 2018? Today it's $2,500. That's our average pledge. It's incredible. It's incredible. So even though we're smaller in number than we were in 2018, we are pledging more. We have a larger budget than we did before, which is fantastic. Which is fantastic. We still need to grow our staff, because if we keep growing like we are, we're going to be understaffed. Just letting you know in advance. But I want to thank you. We raised more than we ever did for our partner church, $9,711. And then for our family, I don't want to say too much because we're in different times, but we raised a bunch of money for some people that we really care about who deserve to have a good life. So your generosity abounds in many ways. Thank you for welcoming me as your lead minister. Thank you for the blessing of serving you.
Okay. Yep. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ann. I just want to say, Ken's going to have to flip back and forth through the slides, so watch her cue, because we couldn't get it all on one.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so we're going to start with this. No, sorry. Yeah. We want income first, please. Yeah, that one. Okay, cool. Hi, everybody.
We're not going to have question and answers about the budget after she presents it. We have that on the agenda at the end, and you can raise all your questions, and we'll do that then.
Okay, so we're going to talk about income first and focus on this budget versus actuals, which are the blue and the purple columns above our head here. So our income is significantly higher than what we budgeted, and a large part of that is an increase in our pledge income. We actually have some visitors and friends who pledged instead of doing the contributions in the baskets. And so even though we show below on the contributions, that is more than made up for in the pledges. So the good news about that is we can plan for it because it's pledged as opposed to just shows up throughout the year. So that's awesome. Another thing to point out is that trivia night was a wonderful success. There was a ton of work done in the background. And we were $1,600 over the budget of $8,000 for that income. So yay, trivia night. I don't know, was it a record for trivia night? Anybody know? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's really nice. I mean, oh yeah, 1,000 a year, woo. So overall, the total income exceeded our budget by $33,000. So that is awesome. So now we can move to expenses. We will talk about next year next, but right now we're going to talk about this year's expenses. So you'll see that the payroll expenses are higher than the budget. The first part of that is because we added Reverend D. And the good news is we've been totally able to pay for her salary entirely from our operational dollars. We didn't have to go and pull anything from reserves to cover that. You'll also notice in the mortgage line, we refinanced the mortgage this year in April, and we got a rate of 6.77%, which was amortized over 12 years, and we have a 5-year balloon on that. So that gives us a mortgage payment that's slightly higher than what we had by about $82 a month. And just as an FYI, the mortgage is secured by both this church property and 222. And our balance is $340,000 mortgage. Our operating expenses are slightly higher than budgeted, partly because we had an increase in insurance premiums. We also had more snow removal expenses, and there was an accounting expenditure from last fiscal year that carried over into this fiscal year. So the total expenses were higher than budgeted, but because of the extra income, we're still expecting a surplus of $13,000 by the end of June. So that's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the approved budget for next year. So Ken, I need you to go back to the income one, because we'll talk income first. So that's the green column now. So we've been talking about purple and blue. Now we're talking about green. So we're currently at $732,000 in pledges. We still expect another 18 or so people to pledge about $15,000. And this is the highest pledge amount we've ever had at Eliot. So yay, us. And Brian has analyzed previous pledge patterns, and it's likely that we're going to get another $15,000 of people catching up from prior year's pledges, and another $42,000 for people paying ahead of the fiscal year. So that $732,000 is 84% of our fiscal year expenses. Sorry, 723. Dyslexic reading. Okay, so, and we also have additional fundraisers for next year. We've got the parking spot raffle, and we're also expecting additional income from the Living Legends series. So now you can go to the next slide to talk about expenses for next year. So the payroll will increase again for three main reasons. One is we're giving a cost of living increase for our ministerial staff, which will get them above UUA guidelines for their roles. We're also increasing David Naletsky's, the pianist's hours, and we're adding a part-time RE coordinator. The amount that's budgeted for programming expenses includes additional funds for membership, immigration, and the social justice teams. And this budget gives us a surplus of $8,142. And that's all I wrote. Or Sue wrote. Oh, the investment. No, that's not all she wrote. Okay. I was so done with that page. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about the investments. So this report is as of March 31st. So things have changed. I don't know how. The overall investment fund went up 1.25% year to date. It obviously might have been higher, but we've had a tumultuous time since the election. Markets have kind of declined. So we also withdrew $9,000 gains from the endowment in early April to cover the courtesy officers. The decision was made in February. At that time, the balance was $109,291. And that was as of January 31st. The Bergfried Fund transferred $8,000 to the Bergfried operating expenses for a land management survey. And all the other transfers for the remaining funds were around $1,000 each. Now that's all she wrote.
Can we have both mics? Yeah, can we have both mics on?
Oh, yes.
Should we stand or sit? I think we should stand. Okay. I don't know. It feels more ceremony. It's a very ritualistic little thing here. The passing of the gavel. Let's read the scripts. And Ken, can you go up a couple slides? Go one more slide. There you go. Can you see the part in green? That's going to be you when we get there, okay?
Carol, were we going to have questions about the
the end of the meeting. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Chapel governance is a spiritual practice. It is the work of divining the purpose of our chapel, the difference that we want to make in the world, expressed in our values, mission, and ends. It is the work of assessing our progress on behalf of this and future congregations. As outgoing chair, you looked at me, did I say something wrong? As outgoing chair of Eliot Chapel's Board of Trustees, I ask you, Jennifer, to pledge to the congregation that you will steward well the office of board chair and ensure that the board validates its trusteeship of the chapel. Jennifer, will you make this pledge?
I will. As board chair, I will ensure the integrity of the board's processes to set and guide the agenda for the year and to foster our governing style. In governing, the board aspires to lead with courageous vision rather than with tactics, be proactive rather than reactive, value diversity of viewpoints, ascertain collective rather than individual intentions, build towards the future, measure progress towards stated goals of the chapel. I pledge to work diligently on behalf of the congregation.
I ask the congregation now to pledge their support to you, the incoming chair, to your newly elected trustees, and the entire board in these endeavors. Congregation. Jennifer, you have pledged before the congregation to uphold your responsibilities as board chair. The congregation has pledged the support to the board and entrusted, gosh, I can't read, support the board and has placed their trust in you and the incoming board. Let your acceptance of this gavel be a symbol to the community of your commitment in Eliot. And our gavel, since last year, has this cool carrying case that Sarah contributed, and it will be thus for forever until it falls apart.
I have been coveting this bag all year. Here's about the gavel. The bag is awesome. Okay. So, my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay, I'm going to sit down for this. So, as I step into this role of board chair, I would like to take a moment to share what this community means to me. I've been coming to Eliot Chapel my whole life. How many of you knew my grandparents? Joe and Louise Killebrew? There's a few hands still. Thank you. Grandpa's been gone since I was in high school, and Grandma for 18 years now. But they are with me every time I step into this sanctuary. Thank you for keeping their memories alive. There are so many others. If I close my eyes, I can still hear Betty Marlowe singing Ave Maria on this chancel. Who else can hear that voice? Thank you for keeping her memory alive. This place is rich with memories and joy. But what I love most about Eliot is how this church continues to grow and evolve together. When I was younger, I used to wonder how we would endure after John Robinson left. Over time, and with the help of some congregants reminding me, I realized that no one person makes Eliot what it is. It's always been the congregation, the collective foundation that sustains us. Countless individuals, past and present, in leadership roles or not, have been dedicated to keeping Eliot vibrant and alive. We are Eliot Chapel, and what a beautiful place to be. We've come a long way since the Eliot of my youth, Times change, and Eliot continues to rise to each challenge with resilience and determination. We never rest on our laurels. That's simply not who we are. We are constantly pushing forward to be better, to do better. We know the world will never be perfect around us, but we commit ourselves to changing the systems and changing ourselves to make it the best we can. Because our vision is creating a just world through vibrant, beloved community. This is who we are. Our mission, bound by courageous love, growing in spirit, and inspiring compassionate action. Love, growth, action, and community. This is what Eliot means to me, and this is who we are. I'm honored to be the board chair this year, but I know deep in my bones that no... I know deep in my bones that no one person does anything here at Eliot. Whatever we achieve will be together because we all show up in the various ways we do. We are Eliot, and it is good to be together. I have a whole page of thank yous, but I have a feeling we're short on time. Well, then, I wish I could speak every name in this room, truly, but I'd like to thank a few individuals by giving them an individual shout out. So all the members of the nominating committee, you guys are awesome. Yes, thank you. In particular, Steve Harvey and Steve Menerick, because they invited me to the board. And to be honest, I never even really considered such a position. I generally prefer to be in background roles, like serving coffee, but they asked me, and I trusted them, because that's what community does. And who knew that being on Eliot's board could be so fun and gratifying? So I highly recommend, if any of you have never been considered board service, but if the nominating committee asks you, go for it. It's loads of fun, and you learn so much. Okay. I also want to thank every one of this year's board's members. I'm going to go fast. Carol Glauser. I am humbled to follow in your footsteps. Your gregarious smile and can-do attitude are contagious. Thank you for your patience and guidance as I learn the ropes. And thank you for believing in me that I can do this. Sue Bell. Hi there on Zoom, Sue. Sue is a steady presence. She exudes calm, transparency, and loving stewardship of our finances. She makes it look effortless. I know better than to underestimate how much she will be missed. Her contributions have been invaluable. Rebecca Taylor. Thank you for your generosity of spirit and heartfelt communication. I love how you engage in community building, reaching out to each and every person with a kind word. Your efforts make a significant difference in fostering connection within our community every Sunday at coffee hour and beyond. David Cox, thank you for staying on to share your wisdom and experience. I don't know what I'd do next year without you. One thing I want to say about David is I love the gravitas of your voice. You speak, your voice is so soft and intentional, but the whole room will stop to listen because they know how valuable your words are. You are a gift to this community and to the board. Kathy Brunts and Matthew Hull, I'm lumping you guys together because you're my fellow newbies. The three of us started the board a year ago. And it's been inspiring to witness each of us growing into our roles. I love seeing the unique contributions each of you brings to this board, and I'm excited to continue working alongside both of you in the years to come. And last but not least, Reverend Krista. Thank you for bringing your energy, vision, and light and love to us here at Eliot. You are transformative. I have been here, again, my whole life. And I love seeing what you are doing with my church, our church. So I'm excited to work with all of you. And that's all I've got to say.
I just have to add this impromptu statement that Jennifer's being the chair-elect in her first year on the board and chair on her second, which is not our normal standards. So for her to step up when we needed someone in that, our freshmen to step up because we didn't have one, she did. And so I just think that takes extra courage because it takes a long time to sort of get the ropes. I feel like I just now figured it out and I'm getting off. So thank you for, facing that fear. All right. So at this time, we're going to open the floor. Is it something I need to look at? Yes. Oh, the results. Okay, before we do the floor thing, let's hear the results. Are you guys surprised? Well, you think you'll be surprised or not? Oh. Okay, for the emerita vote, there were 128 votes. There were 79 in favor and 49 opposed, so that is a 62% yes. That passed. On the name change, there were 129 votes, 101 in favor and 28 opposed, so that passed with 79%. So both measures are a go. Congratulations, Steve Baines. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do open the floor time. David, how much time? I know we're over time, but how much time do we have? 20 minutes on the spot. All right. We'll take it to the end, unless somebody wants to extend it. I'm going to remind you of our meeting rules and these expected practices. To seek recognition by the board, a member shall raise their hand, and we'll have somebody with a mic. That all speakers will identify themselves by name prior to speaking. This is important for the meeting minutes and for the listening experiences of the other attendees. If possible, please indicate to whom you are addressing your question or comment, if it's specific. We limit to 2 minutes per turn holding the floor, with a maximum of 2 times holding the floor per person. And that a member will not speak a second time until all who have wished to do so do before we get into the second round. And that we listen to each other respectively and in a spirit of fellowship. We will set a 20-minute time limit for questions, and the floor is open. Kaylin Punchy.
Hello. Hi, I'm Kaylin Ponchi. My question is about the ECNS rent, and I see that it seems like it's going to be less, $7,000 less next year. I just had questions about that.
Last year, ECNS paid half the cost of the retaining wall, so that's why last year looks more than this year. So they paid that on top of their rent. So this year is the actual rent that they pay.
On the same subject, I thought we were looking at increasing what their cost would be. I mean, has someone done research with regard to other facilities that have preschool?
Anne Marie Hudson. So that was the reason for the payment towards the retaining wall, because they did not have the means to be able to pay more rent, but they had funds they had access to cover the cost of the retaining wall. So that is how they were able to get us additional funds, because they couldn't have done it just through straight rentals. So there is a when you average that out over their lease, there is an increase in their lease, and there also is an extra $25 a year added for increasing utility costs. So that's. Oh yes, absolutely. We've done research. No, we are not. We are not. We are paying. They are paying us much less than its rental value, and that continues at this point in time to be a ministry of the church towards one of the things that we founded. So that's the reason for that to date. But there are always questions about that, I understand.
Are you guys ready to go or what? Cool. All right. Seriously? Wow. Awesome. Thank you again, everyone, for your attendance today. At this time, since the body has approved the agenda, the chair will assume that the motion to adjourn. The annual meeting is on the floor. Are there any objections to adjourning? I think, yeah. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.